The underestimated species. The deception begins. Captain Alina Martinez stood in the observation deck of Galactic Trade Station Nexus 7, watching the stars through the massive, transparent aluminum viewport. Her reflection stared back at her, a woman in her 40s with graying hair and tired eyes, wearing the simple blue uniform of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. To anyone watching, she looked like just another human bureaucrat trying to keep Earth's fragile position in galactic politics secure. She was so much more than that. The communication device in her ear crackled softly. Phoenix, to Nest. The gathering is about to begin. The voice belonged to Dr. Sarah Chen, her scientific advisor and closest friend. More importantly, Sarah was also one of the few people who knew Elena's true identity. "Copy that, Sparrow," Elena replied quietly. "Are our friends in position? All assets are ready. The performance begins in 10 minutes. Elena allowed herself a small smile. After 50 years of careful planning, the moment had finally arrived. Humanity was about to drop its mask. The Council of Predators, the main conference hall of Nexus 7, buzzed with tension. Representatives from the galaxy's 3 most powerful empires sat around a massive circular table made from crystallized starlight. The Zephyrian Empire, masters of energy, manipulation, and territorial expansion. The Krillian Confederation, brutal warriors who conquered through raw military might. The Vorthan Collective, a hive mind species that absorbed other races into their consciousness. For over 1,000 years, these 3 powers had divided the galaxy between them. They viewed other species as either threats to be eliminated or resources to be exploited. Humanity fell firmly into the second category. Ambassador Kethfa of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the head of the table. His tall, thin frame was covered in scales that shifted color, with his emotions currently a deep purple, indicating authority and contempt. "Fellow beings," he began, his voice carrying the arrogance of someone who had never known defeat. "We face a crisis that threatens all civilized life in the galaxy." Admiral Jorix Stoneclaw, representing the Krillian Confederation, slammed his massive fist on the table. The sound echoed through the hall like a gunshot. Standing nearly 8 feet tall, with thick grey skin and tusks that jutted from his lower jaw, he embodied the brutal efficiency of his species. "The Devourers have returned," he growled. "Our scouts have confirmed it. They're moving through the outer rim, consuming everything in their path." A collective shiver ran through the assembled representatives. The Devourers were the stuff of nightmares and ancient machines that had swept through the galaxy a millennium ago, stripping planets bare and turning entire star systems into lifeless metal. They had vanished as suddenly as they appeared, leaving behind only whispered legends and the burned out husks of dead worlds. The third speaker was different from the others. Coordinator Vextel of the Vorthon Collective didn't possess a single body. Instead, it appeared as a shimmering hologram that represented the collective consciousness of billions of minds. When it spoke, its voice was like the whisper of wind through leaves. "Our combined intelligence networks estimate the Devourer force at approximately 10,000 ships. They will reach the core worlds within 6 months." Elena sat quietly at the far end of the table, in the seat reserved for minor species representatives. The other delegates barely acknowledged her presence. To them, she was just another human, weak, emotional, and useful only for their industrial capacity and strategic resource locations. "The question before us," Kethfa continued, "is how to organize our defense. Each empire will contribute according to their capabilities." His scales shifted to a satisfied orange as he pulled up a holographic display. The Zephyrian Empire will provide command and control. Our energy weapons are the most advanced in the galaxy. Jorik nodded approvingly. The Krillian Confederation will handle ground operations and boarding actions. Our warriors are unmatched in close combat. Vextal's hologram flickered. The Vorthon Collective will manage logistics and intelligence. Our network spans every inhabited system. Alina, finally, spoke up. And what role do you see for humanity in this grand alliance? The three representatives exchanged glances. Kethva's scales shifted to an amused yellow. Humans will provide what they do best, resources and expendable troops. Your species breeds quickly and follows orders well. We'll need cannon fodder. For the initial engagements, Alina felt a familiar cold anger settle in her stomach, but she kept her expression neutral. I see, and in return, Jorik said with a laugh that sounded like grinding stone, we'll allow your species to continue existing. Isn't that generous enough? The hidden truth 3 hours later, Alina stood in her private quarters aboard the human transport ship Peaceful Horizons. Dr. Sarah Chen sat across from her, inputting data into a quantum-encrypted communication device. Both women had dropped their diplomatic facades. How long since we've had contact with the Watchers? Alina asked. Sarah's fingers flew across the holographic interface. Last transmission was 6 hours ago. All observation posts report normal activity. The Devourers are following predicted patterns. Alina nodded. And our assets in the 3 empires, fully integrated. Some of our people have been embedded for over 20 years. The Zephyrians still think Agent Kumar is one of their energy. Technicians, the Krillians believe Commander Jackson is just another mercenary warrior. The Vorthon Collective doesn't even know we've been feeding them false intelligence through our hybrid operatives. Alina walked to the viewport and looked out at the starfield. Somewhere out there, the Devourers were coming. But they weren't the uncontrollable force of nature that the galaxy believed them to be. Humanity had learned the truth during secret archaeological expeditions to dead Devourer worlds. The machines weren't randomly destructive. They were following ancient programming, clearing the galaxy of species that had grown too aggressive, too dangerous. Sarah, Alina said quietly, initiate Protocol 7. It's time to begin the next phase. Sarah's hands paused over the controls. Are you certain? Once we do this, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. Good, Alina replied. I'm tired of pretending to be weak. The fleet departs 2 weeks later. A massive human fleet departed from Sol System. To outside observers, it looked exactly like what the galactic empires had requested, a collection of converted merchant vessels, mining ships, and passenger liners hastily fitted with basic weapons. The ships were clunky, inefficient, and clearly built by a species that prioritized commerce over warfare. It was a perfect deception, Captain. Rivera of the converted freighter, New Mumbai, watched the fleet formation through his viewscreen. 300 ships, carrying nearly 1 million human personnel. Most of the crews were genuine volunteers who believed they were making a noble sacrifice for their species. But scattered throughout the fleet were the real soldiers, men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Sir, his communications officer called out, we're receiving final deployment orders from Earth Command. Rivera smiled grimly. Earth Command was the public face of human military force, adequate for police actions and minor conflicts, but nothing that would concern the major empires. What the galaxy didn't know was that Earth's command only controlled about 15%. of humanity's actual military capability. Patch me through to all ship commanders, Rivera ordered. Time to let them know what we're really doing out here. The transmission was brief and encrypted with keys that would dissolve after a single use. When it was over, every human in the fleet understood the truth. They weren't going to fight the Devourers as cannon fodder for alien empires. They were going to demonstrate that humanity had never been the weak, helpless species the galaxy believed them to be. The Watchers far from the main shipping lanes. In the empty space between star systems, a different kind of fleet waited in perfect silence. These ships bore no markings, emitted no energy signatures, and registered on no sensors. They were phantoms, invisible to all but the most advanced detection systems. Simpsons and humanity had made sure that no other species possessed such technology. Admiral Lisa Hawthorne stood on the bridge of the stealth ship Raven's Eye, watching tactical displays that showed the positions of every major military asset in the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was mobilizing their energy platforms. The Krillian Confederation was loading their assault carriers. The Vorthan Collective was coordinating through their quantum communication networks. All of them were moving exactly as humanity had predicted they would. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, the Devourer Advance Fleet has just entered the Kepler sector. They're maintaining course and speed toward the core worlds. Hawthorne nodded. And our merchant fleet? On schedule. They'll rendezvous with the Allied forces in 72 hours. Excellent. Signal all Watcher units. Phase 1 is complete. Prepare for Phase 2. The performance when the human fleet arrived at the designated staging area. The reception was exactly what Alina had expected. The Zephyrian energy platforms hung in space like jeweled ornaments, their crystalline hulls pulsing with contained power. The Krillian assault carriers looked like massive metal fortresses, bristling with weapons and armor. The Vorthan ships were stranger organic-looking vessels that seemed to shift and change shape as they moved. And then there were the humans, with their converted merchant ships and civilian volunteers. They looked pathetic by comparison. Ambassador Kethfer's voice crackled over the communication channel. Humans, you will take position at the front of the formation. Your ships will absorb the initial Devourer assault, while our forces prepare for the real battle. Alina, speaking from the bridge of the peaceful horizons, let a note of fear enter her voice. Are you sure that's wise? Our ships aren't designed for heavy combat. That's exactly why you're going first. Jorik's laughter boomed across the channel. You'll give us valuable intelligence about Devourer tactics. Consider it your contribution to galactic survival. Alina exchanged a glance with Sarah, who was monitoring quantum communications from the Watcher fleet. Everything was proceeding perfectly. Very well, Alina said, injecting resignation into her voice. Humanity will do its duty. As the human fleet moved into position, none of the alien observers noticed the subtle energy signatures building within the merchant ships. They didn't see the weapon systems extending from hidden compartments or the formation patterns that would soon reveal themselves as something far more sophisticated than a desperate last stand. The Devourers were coming, but they weren't the only ones with surprises in store. The revelation, the transformation, the first. Devourer ships appeared on the edge of the system like malevolent stars. They were sleek, predatory things, black metal that seemed to absorb light, covered in weapons that pulsed with deadly energy. For 1,000 years, these machines had been the galaxy's nightmare. Now they were about to become humanity's opportunity. Captain Rivera felt the familiar hum of concealed systems coming online throughout his ship. The new Mumbai was about to shed its disguise. Around him, his bridge, crawl of them, trained from childhood for this moment, prepared for the transformation that would change galactic history. All stations, prepare for combat configuration, Rivera announced. This is not a drill. The change was breathtaking. The clunky merchant vessel began to shift and reform, its hull plates sliding apart to reveal advanced weapon systems, sensor arrays, and propulsion units that belonged on a warship decades ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. The transformation took less than 60 seconds. Across the human fleet, 300 ships underwent the same metamorphosis. Merchant vessels became destroyers. Passenger liners revealed themselves as assault carriers. Mining ships opened to disgorge fighter squadrons that moved with precision no civilian pilot could match. But the most dramatic transformation was happening to the humans themselves. The true soldier's commander, Jake Morrison, had spent 15 years pretending to be a freight coordinator. He'd attended boring meetings, filed cargo manifests, and endured the casual contempt of alien bureaucrats who saw humans as useful servants. Now he stood in his true uniform, the midnight black of human special operations, and felt the weight of deception lifting from his shoulders. All units, this is Phoenix Command. Elena's voice came through the tactical network. Drop the act. Show them what we really are. Morrison's team moved through the ship with practiced efficiency. These weren't volunteer civilians hastily trained for war. They were professional soldiers who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. Their weapons were cutting edge, their tactics were flawless, and their coordination was seamless. The alien empires were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their breeding rate or their willingness to follow orders. It was their ability to plan, to deceive, and to strike when their enemies least expected it. Aria awakens deep within the peaceful horizons. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before a quantum computer core that officially didn't exist. The device hummed, with power that dwarfed anything in the civilian technology databases. This was Ariath, advanced reconnaissance and intelligence apparatus, humanity's greatest secret weapon. Aria, Sarah spoke to the machine. We are at Phase 2. Full operational parameters are now in effect. The AI's response came through speakers that seemed to make the air itself vibrate. Confirmed, Dr. Chen. I have been monitoring all enemy communications and movement patterns. The Devourers are proceeding according to their historical behavioral algorithms. The alien empires are positioning themselves exactly as predicted. Aria wasn't just a computer. It was a collective intelligence that had been observing and analyzing galactic military patterns for over 40 years. Every trade negotiation, every diplomatic summit, every military exercise had been carefully studied and catalogued. The AI knew how each empire thought, how they fought, and what they would do in any given situation. Show me the tactical overview, Sarah requested. Holographic displays materialized around her, showing the positions of every ship in the system. The Zephyrian platforms were charging their energy weapons, preparing to fire over the human fleet at the approaching Devourers. The Krillian carriers were launching their assault craft, ready to close to boarding range. The Vorthan ships were spreading out to provide intelligence and coordination. All of them were about to be very surprised. The first strike for Devourers came like a tide of metal and death. Their ships moved in perfect formation, their weapons systems already charging. For the devastating first strike that had obliterated countless civilizations, they had faced this scenario thousands of times before, organic species huddling together in desperate defense. hoping that superior numbers could overcome superior technology. They had never faced anything like humanity. The first surprise came when the human fleet didn't break formation under the Devourer assault. Instead, their ships began to dance, moving in patterns that seemed impossible for vessels of their size and design. The Devourer's targeting systems, calibrated for predictable organic behavior, suddenly found themselves unable to achieve weapon locks. The second surprise came when the humans fired back. The weapons that emerged from the transformed ships weren't the crude energy cannons and kinetic projectiles that the galaxy expected from humanity. There was something entirely new: weapons that seemed to bend space itself, creating gravitational anomalies that tore Devourer ships apart from within. The humans had learned to weaponize the fundamental forces of the universe. Admiral Hawthorne watched from the bridge of the Raven's Eye as the first phase of the battle unfolded. The Watcher fleet remained hidden, but their sensors were recording everything. This data would be invaluable for future operations. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, the Devourer advance force is taking heavy casualties. They're attempting to adapt their tactics, but our ships are maintaining the advantage. Hawthorne nodded. Signal the merchant fleet. Time for Phase 3. The psychological warfare. What happened next would be discussed in military academies for generations. The human fleet didn't just fight the Devourers. They systematically dismantled them with tactics that bordered on the supernatural. Ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Weapons fired from impossible angles. Entire squadrons of Devourers found themselves trapped in gravitational fields that crushed them like insects. But the most devastating weapon humanity deployed wasn't technologically, it was psychological. The alien empires, watching the battle, gradually realized they were seeing something impossible. The humans weren't just holding their own against the Devourers. They were winning easily. These weren't the weak, emotional creatures that had begged for protection and trade agreements. These were predators who had been hiding among sheep. Ambassador Kethva Eskel's shifted rapidly through every color in the spectrum as he watched the tactical displays. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Humans don't have this kind of technology. They're barely out of their industrial age." Admiral Jorik's massive hands clenched and unclenched as he watched human fighters dart between Devourer ships like deadly insects. "They've been lying to us," he growled. "All these years, they've been lying." Coordinator Vexed Force hologram flickered with distress. "Our intelligence networks are reporting similar capabilities throughout human space. They have been concealing their true strength for decades." The final revelation as the last Devourer. Ships in the advance fleet were destroyed or driven off. Captain Alina Martinez finally dropped her diplomatic mask completely. Her transmission went out on all frequencies, ensuring that every empire in the galaxy would hear her words. "Attention, all galactic civilizations," she began, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had never truly been afraid. "This is Admiral Alina Martinez of the Terran Defense Force. For 50 years, humanity has maintained the fiction that we are a weak, peaceful species interested only in trade and cooperation. Today, that fiction ends. The transformation was complete." The woman who had sat quietly at the end of conference tables, accepting scraps and insults, was revealed as one of the most dangerous military commanders in the galaxy. "The Devourers are not an uncontrollable force of nature," she continued. "They are ancient peacekeepers, programmed to eliminate species that become too aggressive, too expansionist. They return every 1,000 years to cull the civilizations that have grown too dangerous. and they have been watching all of you. The implications hit the alien empires like a physical blow. If humanity could defeat the Devourers, if they understood their true purpose, then humans weren't just another species to be exploited. They were the apex predators of the galaxy, hiding in plain sight. For the past 5 decades, Alina continued, we have been positioning ourselves throughout the galaxy. Our merchant vessels are actually reconnaissance ships. Our colonists are military observers. Our diplomats are intelligence operatives. We have been studying you, learning your weaknesses, and preparing for the day when we would need to protect ourselves. Dr. Sarah Chen stood beside her, no longer bothering to hide the advanced technology that surrounded them. We didn't want war, she added. We wanted to be left alone to develop in peace. But you wouldn't let us. You saw us as resources to be exploited, as tools to be used. So we became something else. The new reality, the battle, was over, but the war for galactic dominance was just beginning. The human fleet hung in space like a sword of judgment, their true capabilities finally revealed. The alien empires found themselves facing a reality they had never imagined. They were no longer the predators at the top of the food chain. Admiral Hawthorne's Watcher fleet finally decloaked, revealing technology that made even the transformed merchant vessels look primitive. These were the real warships of humanity's, leak, deadly, and numbering in the thousands. They had been hidden throughout the galaxy, waiting for this moment. Commander Morrison's voice came through the tactical network, calm and professional. All objectives achieved. The Devourers are retreating to their staging areas. Enemy forces are in complete disarray. Alina smiled grimly. Understood. Signal all units. We are now in Phase 4. Phase 4 was the most dangerous phase of all. Now that humanity's true strength was revealed, the galaxy would have to decide whether to accept the new balance of power or fight against it. Some species would choose cooperation, others would choose war. Humanity was prepared for both. The message, as the alien fleets began to withdraw, uncertain and afraid, Alina sent one final transmission. This one was directed specifically at the leaders of the 3 great empires. We never wanted to rule the galaxy, she said. We wanted to be left alone to grow and develop in peace. But you wouldn't allow that. You saw us as weak, as useful, as expendable. You were wrong about all of it. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. The Devourers will return in force within the next few months. You can choose to fight them alone, using the same tactics that failed for 1,000 years. Or you can accept humanity as an equal partner in galactic civilization. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. The age of human deception was over. The age of human dominance had begun. Far from the battle zone, on planets throughout the galaxy, other human colonists and merchants were receiving similar instructions. The masquerade was ending everywhere at once. Humanity's true fleet was revealing itself. Their real technology was coming online, and their actual intentions were becoming clear. The galaxy had awakened a sleeping giant. Now it would have to live with the consequences. Alina stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so vast and dangerous. Now they looked like what they truly were, humanity's birthright, waiting to be claimed. The Devourers were coming, but they would find that the galaxy was no longer the same place they had left 1,000 years ago. Humanity had risen, and they would never again pretend to be weak. The real war was just beginning. Asterisk.